Welcome to the Sunstone Health Podcast, hosted by Joshua Resnikoff, co-founder and CEO of Sunstone Health, and storyteller Justin Starbird. This show explores what happens when healthcare stops telling families to be patient and starts delivering answers. Sunstone Health exists to end the diagnostic odyssey. Each episode brings you honest conversations with people on the ground, clinicians, innovators, and advocates who are pushing healthcare to work the way it should. This is the Sunstone Health Podcast, because being patient shouldn't be the plan.
Welcome back to the Sunstone Health Podcast. My name is Justin Starbird, and as always, I'm welcomed by CEO of Sunstone Health, Josh Resnikoff. Josh, great to have you on today.
Always great to be here. Thank you for having us.
This is pretty cool. We get to have a special guest with us today, Emma Fox from the FoxWatch. Emma, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is exciting.
This is great. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about, how Emma and why we have her on today?
Yeah, I would love to. So I'm gonna go big on this one. All right. So I would say that Emma is actually a luminary in the health plan space, in the progressive health plan space. I got the opportunity to meet her last year at Rosetta Fest, and we very much instantly became kindred spirits. Mostly I was in awe of all the work that she's done over the last, I wouldn't even say how long, but the change that she has made almost single-handedly in the industry to really inspire a whole lot of brokers to do the right thing and advise plans to just be the plan that they want to be, right? And Emma, I think that you'll probably use better language than I will, but we just had a real natural affinity for each other, and it's been great to work with her. I was just at her U-Powered Symposium in Savannah. That's, a seminal event during the year where the best of the best come together to not just meet and sort of touch base, but trade tips and tricks and strategies for how to go out and help their health plans, really be the best self-funded health plan that they can be. We also have this connection on the work that Sunstone does on a family way. We can talk about that or not. We can edit this out too if you don't want to talk about it, which is totally fine. But that's it. I'll turn it over to Emma so she can do a better job than that. But we're just very lucky and excited to have her on the show today.
Wow, I was just like, keep going. This is great for me. Wow, I don't know how to follow that. That's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like when we met at Rosetta Fest, it really was there was something that was really aligned with what you were doing, even though I didn't really understand it at the time. And so it's been wonderful to have you in my network. I guess I'm an advisor. I'm a specialty advisor. I have been for a while now. I specialize in self-funded, large group self-funded and alternative funding for companies that prioritize cost containment, I guess, is the easiest way to describe that. But I spent a ton of my career on the carrier side. We call it the dark side. And, at some point, I guess I kind of became a sort of a mouthpiece for everything that was wrong on the inside of that model. And that, of course, caught me a little bit of attention, some good, some not so good. And that's really, I would say that's kind of where my career started, even though I've been doing this for well over 20 years now. I think when I kind of spoke out against, the things that were bad in the system is really when my career started, which probably, I guess, about 10 years ago now. And I'm still here, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
But Emma, would you say that you were one of the early, maybe like one of the earliest and loudest? Is that fair? Right? Like I feel like the stories that I know about you, the things that people talk about you, in a good way, are really just what a trailblazer you've been in the space to make a difference. It's also so interesting to me because I feel like all of the people that I've really come to admire in the space over the last like year and a half of me just getting to know it, almost everybody sort of shares that, like, oh well, I used to work for the bad guy, and then they like to say, like, I had my Jerry Maguire moment, but like I couldn't do it anymore. I sort of saw the forest for the trees and had to go out and make a difference. And it sounds like that was your path as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest and to get a little personal, some people are passive aggressive. I'm like massive aggressive, and that's been part of my personality my whole entire life. And so earlier on in my career, it was that made things very difficult for me because I am first of all, I approach everything with curiosity, which when you work in an organization that is covering up a lot of things, that's like the worst employee to have is someone who is curious about everything. And so my my need to uncover things and understand them and to be unafraid to speak about them often got me into a lot of trouble. And so I have I been the loudest? I'm definitely not the loudest. I think I'm probably pretty modest actually, but the thing that sets me apart is that I do question a lot of things and I'm very comfortable with that. Whereas I think a lot of people wouldn't be. And that's really how I got here is just like asking tons and tons of questions. And sometimes they were hard for people to answer, but it at least got like the gears turning for every conversation that I had. And I just honestly, Josh, like I just keep doing that. I just keep approaching everything with curiosity.
When you were approaching that with curiosity from within, how was that received? At what point were you like, oh man, I gotta get out of here?
Well, so two
Or
things
you shut the
happened, right?
door. I guess there's two ways of it.
So two things happened at my last carrier job. First was the carrier that I worked for. They bought the naming rights to a really big sports stadium in my town, and at the same time, we were kind of going through renewal season, and we were really well prepped, like trained to answer some tough questions because the obvious question is like, did my premium dollars pay for you to slap your name on a sports stadium? And unfortunately, I was the one that was in the meeting having to answer those questions. And I remember reciting something that I had been trained, which was this is going to make you guys laugh, but I used to go out there and say, "Oh no, no, no! These are not your premium dollars. These are marketing dollars, and they're very different."
Totally
And
different
then
bucket.
I was like, "Do I hear the own bullshit that's coming out of my mouth?" And when I brought it up to my leadership, I just felt like I was constantly being gaslit over and over. Like, no, this is what it is. It almost as if they were trying to retrain me away from the truth. And then I think the breaking point came when when you're in like that high level of role, you're really not supposed to get involved at the member level. But there was a member who needed a medication, um, and the company was forcing them through step therapy. And I reviewed as much as I was allowed to, and I just didn't understand how we got to this conclusion. And everybody that I went to, well, that's what the policy says. Well, that's what the contract is. Well, that's how we do things here. And that was probably my point where I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like I don't understand why it's bad. And so I can't participate or make it better. And so I have to go. But there were a few like that. There was a lot of little snaps.
It's so funny that you talk about the healthcare stadium, for the stadium named after a healthcare company. I had a very similar experience out at a major healthcare conference in Vegas that happens every year in the fall. And it's all about the parties you get invited to and like all where all the networking events happen. And I am not important, and I definitely was less important then. And so I got invited to like the Gen Pop party, right? And this is like a huge conference, like 14,000 people show up to this conference. And it's in Vegas. And so we go through and it's a 7 o'clock thing. And finally we get to this club inside of a casino, and there's a full-on musical act. And I'm like already kind of blown away, like, holy cow, I can't believe this is just free. And this guy next to me is like, mate, go behind the stage, like you got to go through. And I go out into a courtyard that is fire dancers and past apps and top shelf tequila and all over the place, is brought to you by this person who's a major one of the bukas, right? And I was just like, if this is like a $5 million party,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like, oh my God, no one should be feeling okay about the fact that we're like drinking somebody's insulin shot right now. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it is, it's that whiplash has always been impossible for me to reconcile. Um, I mean, maybe that's part of the kindred spirit. I love the massive aggressive. Justin's also a New England guy, so massive aggressive for us just feels natural.
That's just how we roll.
But
Yeah, It's interesting you say that, Josh, because I remember like those things used to enthrall me, like hosting a suite at the sports stadium, going to these big parties. And I used to almost look at it as it's a reward for all the hard work that I'm doing. And at some point it does switch and you're like, wait a minute, where is this all coming from? Like how, and then it's like they say it all the time about this business. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I know I could never go back. Unfortunately, my job market is now a little smaller if I ever needed to go work for somebody else. But yeah, it's really gross. It's pretty dirty.
So talk about that a little bit, about how you started the FoxWatch and the impetus for turning this massive aggression into a business.
Well, I've really always had, and aggressive is the wrong word. I think I'm very comfortable with confrontation. I'm very comfortable with directness. I'm actually a very sweet person, I promise. But I had an agency for a very long time with a business partner for, I guess it was about 8 years. And he and we just aligned completely on like, we need to get these employers away from carriers and we need to figure out how to do it reasonably, rationally, and sustainably. And we did that over 8 years at ePowered Benefits, and we had major success. We were one of, if not the first fee-based consulting firm that popped up in the US back then. And so that made us even more noticeable, right? Because we were collectively doing something quite radical. And then at some point, and FoxWatch has been around this is the second year. At some point, I really wanted to align more with the employers. And for me, that means not being their advisor. It means putting myself in more of a neutral spot for them. But what I do believe wholeheartedly is that if more employers knew how to find the right advisors, those that are going the extra mile, that are specialists in their field, that have been validated or whatever the case might be, I think that we could make change a little quicker. And so FoxWatch really was the result of a program that I had built some years ago called Health Plan Diagnostics, which is a complete overhaul and audit of an employer's plan and their broker. And when this first was developed, it was called Broker Check. And we eventually changed the name because we thought that would be too massive aggressive, right? Like, we're just going to check your broker. But we do that. And essentially, I spend a lot of my time looking through plans, pulling out all of the things that are wasteful, underutilized, overutilized, abusive, excess commissions, kickbacks. And I have yet to come across a case where many of those things don't exist at the same time. And then I essentially help that employer get to a better advisor. I make recommendations of what plan partners would be more efficient for them or would help them get to their goals a little quicker. But that was all in this desire to align with the purchasers, which are the employers.
And so I love, like, to me, the idea of becoming a subject matter expert, right? And like really building a brand for yourself, but then becoming a force multiplier and like teaching people to fish, right? Like that is such a more powerful, like, I'm going to use the word legacy for you to go off and create, where you're actually creating like the next army, the next wave of people who can go off and do this at scale behind you. I mean, I think a lot of people would not do that, frankly. They would want to maintain that singular ability to do it because it makes you that much more valuable. But what is your, like, when you look at that fork in the road too, like what is it, just the innate desire to like do the right thing that lets you go off and want to help more employers, even if it means maybe like not getting all of the ownership on your own?
Yeah, I definitely have a pretty heavy moral compass, I would say. I'm very much in the seeking out justice type of personality trait, I guess, but I feel like I can do more and I can do it at scale if I'm not trying to keep the business for myself. It also means that I can help fellow advisors. It also means that I can help employers, but it also means I can highlight plan solutions. Because when you think about uPowered, right, you have all of those people in the same room trying to figure out how do we work together to achieve X. And the problem is you have these conferences, like uPowered was so energizing. It's a highly intense environment for a lot of people. But then you go home and the waves kind of settle down a little, and you sort of lose a little bit of that momentum. And so for me, it's more about being able to continue the trend and the mission throughout the year. But I'm also not stuck to any book of business. So I get to just do the work that I specialize in. I get to hand it off to somebody who loves the fact that I'm referring them business. But I know the employer is in safe hands. And the nice thing is, as soon as I audit an employer, they have me on retainer. So if they ever are suspicious about the broker that I recommended, they can come back to me and I can do it all over again. And so it's a little bit of both. Like it's like, this is the right thing to do, but also I can help a lot more people a lot faster.
Hence the watching, the FoxWatch.
That's right.
That's right. That's pretty great.
Thinking about how you interact with your clients and helping them achieve their goals, what are some typical blind spots that, I don't know, I don't want to give away, the secret sauce here, but are there blind spots that you tend to help them see, or is it unique per client?
Honestly, 80 to 90% of the problem is always the broker. And I hate to say that. I love my profession. I love being an advisor, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of wonderful advisors. But there are a lot of advisors that they don't know what they don't know. And if you're just facilitating a transaction between an employer and an insurance company, well, there's a lot of juicy stuff in the middle there that no one, not even the broker, is understanding what's going on. And so almost all the time, it's either a broker doesn't know what they know, and so they've sold something that has a lot of underlying problems, or they do know, and especially in the self-funding world, and self-funding is my specialty and I love it, but it is the dirtiest part of our industry. It is where you can take $1 here, $1 there, $5 here, $10 here. You never have to report it. You get to go on trips, you get volume bonuses, and employers have no idea about that. And they're also not looking for it either, because they're trusting that their advisor is doing the right thing. So that is by far the biggest trend. And then I think employers are surprised to know that they have options. Like a lot of audits that I do are self-funded through a carrier, through an ASO model. A lot of employers have no idea that they can go independent. Like that, some employers I talk to, they're like, "What is a TPA?" And it's like, "Oh my God, you have there's an entire world here where you can like pick and choose your parts." So that's always a pretty big revelation too. So it all comes back to like education, or maybe ignorance in some cases.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just, thinking from, the employer standpoint, and they don't know what they don't know either, right? And so, I think and you have this, incredible reputation for being innovative and brutally honest. What are some things that are so difficult for you, or not, maybe not difficult for you to share with them, but stuff that's difficult for them to hear from you?
It's usually it's sort of like that feeling when you've spent a period of time that you know you're never going to get back. For a lot of employers, it's like, "Oh man, I can't believe I've been blind to this for so long, and what has it cost me?" That's a really tough conversation to have. And if I'm auditing somebody that's truly independently self-funded, I can get pretty granular down to the member level, like what did we miss and what was the consequence of that? And those conversations are not fun, because sometimes that consequence for some people is literally life and death. So it's kind of hard it's just hard to have emotional conversations about what could have been in any environment. It's also very hard for people to hear that a person that they've had a relationship with for a long time, usually they've been with their broker for like 10 years, and they know each other's families, causing that breakup is not the easiest thing in the world. But one of our marketing campaigns, when we launched, we had, big ads everywhere, and it was like #broker breakup. And that's really what happens. And those conversations are pretty tough too.
Yeah, I think it's got to be challenging for you on both sides, when you're basically like, hey, this person that you thought was awesome is actually taking advantage of you. And also, broker, this cash cow that you've become accustomed to is no longer going to just fork money over, right? But it's really so the question I have for you from where you sit, like one thing that I have just, you know, even way back when my kid first got sick, right? And I'm like mad about the healthcare system, right? The inefficiencies in the healthcare system. And that kind of like puts me down my path of like, all right, I'm going to go fix this from like a tech perspective. And then as I start to get into like, all right, well, I actually have to sell this product in. And now you have to learn, I have to learn all of the like nuances in the space, like where do the incentives get aligned and who's paying who. And every time I'm like, okay, I have a pretty decent understanding about how nasty the system is. Like I'll go to a U-Powered and I'm like, oh, there's a whole nother layer of things that I wasn't even aware of, right? These like kickbacks and these workarounds and all this other stuff. It's sort of inevitable, I think, in any system when you pump this much money into it, that there will be bad actors, right? And I think the more money you put in, the more opportunity you have to veil where that money goes, the more it attracts people who are there for the money and not there for in our case, for the patient health.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is like you are fighting this good fight about trying to get people to do the right thing to spend money appropriately so that they can get cost containment? But to me, it also feels like if we could just pull a lot of the fat, the juice out of the system, it would actually be easier for you to your job and for employers to do the thing. And I'm not saying like, hey, we should be on single payer, but like, do you think we can actually get the surplus money out of the system? Is that possible at this point, or is like the horse too far out of the barn?
You know, I am 42 years old. I'm going to be 43 this year. And for a very long time, I had an unwavering belief that we could drastically change this system. Honestly, when we saw what happened to the United Healthcare CEO, I thought that's it. That's the breaking point right there. Someone has literally been, assassinated in the streets. This is where it happens. Like this is where the sweeping and I mean it was like what, a week or two later, nobody's talking about it again. And I think it was at that point where I realized that this really is a David and Goliath fight. And I sort of recommitted to myself that I can contribute in small ways every single day, but I'm never going to see this system crash or get rebuilt. I just can contribute to whoever does get to see that well into the future. But I'm not like super single payer either, but I do firmly believe that if anything is going to drastically change, it's going to have to be mandated and held highly accountable.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the only power greater than the BUCAs at this point is the government. And so it's, I don't know.
You don't have faith in that?
I don't have a lot of faith in the government. No. So I don't know. I think it's going to take, like, I love what Mark Cuban is doing. He has a great platform for it.
Great. I love his posts on LinkedIn. They're like,
yeah, he's sassy. He's, and he's a lovely guy. And so I hope that people with more influence will catch on, because we need those platforms. So that will help too. But without radical government intervention that makes sense, I don't think we're going to bring them down by ourselves. No.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I just kind of wanted you to say something else.
Well, but there's an alternative, right? Which is what I decided to do some years ago is I'm not going to play in the system anymore. I'm going to stop trying to break it and instead create a parallel system that welcomes other people into it, which is what we've been doing. Everyone at U-Power does, right? And so now it's a matter of just making sure that people know there are other options. You do not have to stay with a BUCA. And if your advisor is telling you that's your only option, we need to take a look at your advisor. And I can do that on a small scale, but the more people that are willing to help me out here would get us there a little quicker.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't talked about, Josh. Sorry, I want to take a side
no, go ahead.
here. Is we've talked a lot about the U-Powered symposium that you put together, and we actually haven't profiled that on our show here. So if you wouldn't mind, take a little bit of time to explain how that what that is, how it came to be, and what the goals are. And then Josh, it'd be great to hear your perspective as somebody that's been there.
Also, tell us where 2027 is going to happen, Emma.
It's not confirmed, but it's highly likely we'll be in Arizona next February. So I learned my lesson with the Savannah snowstorm, not willing to take those chances again.
How
And
about
so
Mexico City? Let's go to Mexico.
we did one in Puerto Rico a couple of years ago, and it was really pretty magical. Just in February, the only thing you want in the world is to get away from your cold climate. And so, yeah, it's probably going to be in Arizona. The very first one was actually in Phoenix, and it was an accident. I tell this story all the time. When COVID happened, we were shut down, and I started hosting these Zoom meetings called coffee breaks. And I was like, hey, if anyone's kind of lonely and wants to chat about business, come to this meeting. Well, that ended up becoming kind of like several episodes. I think we ended up doing like 50 episodes that are archived somewhere. And every week I would invite somebody who was an expert in their corner of the market to come teach. And people love to teach when they have something to say. And so, 50 plus episodes, we highlighted a person. And then when the world started opening up, I put this little survey on LinkedIn and I said, anybody feel like getting together like in person for a coffee break? And I said, I got this little hotel in Arizona. Well, like 350 people signed up. So
Really?
like, shit, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I just thought we were kind of going to have a happy hour. And so then all of a sudden we had like 5 months to figure it out because maybe less than that. And so I was like printing name badges at my kitchen table. I was like asking people to come speak. Marty McCary came, Marshall Allen came, and it was fantastic. It was like amazing. And I remember sitting in that room in Phoenix and being like, what in the world is happening? Like, what is going on? Um, and so then everyone was like, we're going to do this again next year, right? And then I had to make a logo and build a brand. And now we've done 5 of them. And it's every year I'm like, do I keep doing this? I don't know. And then I'm interested to see what you thought as an attendee. But as soon as you're in that environment with people who are just so curious and mission driven and aligned, it's like, how can I not keep doing this? So 2027.
All right, so just to play that back to you, you in COVID got bored, started a Zoom hang, and then ended up hosting the first Woodstock version of a broker event.
Oh my God, I'm totally gonna brand it that way. Yes, yeah, pretty much. And it was just such a good mix of we did the very first one that we did a stand-up comedy, a comedy roast. And it was just such a good like relief of fun, but we were all learning. Like some people were crying when they were talking to each other about like how badly they want to do something different. So it was really apparent that the people who showed up were a very different group of people. And I just felt I do still feel very responsible to continue providing like a space for them to continue to have those conversations.
Yeah, I will say as an attendee, like right off the bat, the vibe of the conference, like to be very, very technical about it, was totally different than a lot of the other conferences I went to. And it's not that people aren't professional. Everybody's still dressed up. Everyone's still there for business. Everyone's there to like move the needle. But the like baseline level of just camaraderie, right? Like all of those people are there not, you go to some of these other bigger conferences, frankly, like some of the more well-known ones. We won't throw anybody under the bus here, but it's handshakes and golf games and like talking about margins and all that sort of stuff. Like people are trying to flex on the system that exists, right?
Mhm.
They're trying to figure out how to broker that together. And there's great people there too. I mean, like I was out at SIA for the first time in Phoenix last November, and I learned a ton, and met a whole swath of the industry that I never had met before. I'm gonna go back this year. But the U Powered really felt like, I don't want to say like the bad news bears, you know what I mean? Like that's not what I mean, but it feels like that clubhouse feeling where like you're like, all right, we're gonna go solve this problem together. And just being able to see everybody else in that room and know that everybody else in that room has that same base feeling of like what is happening isn't good. And I'm definitely gonna be the kind of person that will be on your team to make a different kind of system work. it just enables a level of conversation so much faster where you don't have to like suss out, is the person that you're talking about like a good guy or a bad guy? Everybody at UPower is a good guy, right? So,
Yeah, mostly.
well,
I
everybody I met.
Yeah, they are good people, but I think like what we really try to do and what I hope you felt is, this really is a human problem. It's a humanitarian problem. Like and I think if you're just kind of going to the office every day and you're selling this and you're selling that and you're not, if you, like I tell people all the time, if you don't understand how healthcare delivery works, you cannot possibly figure out how to finance it
Right.
appropriately. And so that's what we try to teach. That's why we have clinicians at UPowered. We try to bring like the humanity back in, because every transaction a broker makes will affect somebody down the line, whether they ever hear about it or not. And that might be positive in some cases, but in most cases, it's a negative consequence. And so really, we're just trying to help people understand like, and sometimes I think like, is this so lame and corny? But like our work is really more impactful than I think people realize. And so that's what we try to get at, right? It's like we can talk strategy all day long. We can talk about RVP, we can talk about PBMs. All of it is very important. But until you understand like what the human consequences to all of these things, I don't think you can like get to the heart of it. So hopefully we're giving you that when you come to Symposium.
No, it very much feels that way. And I think the other, like the programming is great, but it's not just the fact that people are there talking about it, because it's not a whole bunch of people who are like wish casting, right? You get people like Hari up there, people like Pat Moore, people who are really like you, leaders and experts, and have been very successful at what they do, and can draw that line for other people in the room who are either like doing the right thing curious, or maybe just getting started on their journey, right? Like having their Jerry Maguire moment. But I think it's so important to be able to bring those kinds of big name iconic figures into the mix, because it gives people a North Star where they're like, oh well, I can do the right thing and I can make the kind of money that like these other, the dark side is promising me, right? Like it's possible to use business as a force for good. So I mean, I've already signed up for 2027 in case you haven't figured that out. But
So glad. And I know we're probably going to get to it, but I am like in love with Sunstone and what you guys are doing. And I don't say that lightly, because I come across a lot of plan solutions and a lot of them are really wonderful. But again, like when you're trying to hit at the heart of the problem, making it personal and humanizing it is something that it's why I enjoy having you in my network, because I feel like you're doing like really solid work.
I I really appreciate that. Yeah, for us, obviously it's personal for me, right? Like I think anybody who's listened has known my story about my kid who has a rare syndrome, and really brought me into the space. Um, but one of the things that we've really doubled down on and figured out as we started to talk to these plans is that they're so tired of solutions that just, or they're not even solutions, services that just point out problems, right? Services that don't actually take the next action to go off and help solve a problem or give a plan something actionable that will drive down costs or help with cost containment. And that's important to do, because the system that we're in, like money does move the machine, and you can go make the best possible patient solution in the world, right? You could go throw $10 million at every patient, but unfortunately, if it doesn't make money or save money, it's never going to scale. And so the fact that we've been able to do something that really does both, aligns those incentives appropriately, the fact that it's resonating with not just the UPowered community, but with frankly people who are still in the Buco community, right? Because it's cost containment's real for them too. It does feel really good. But to get the kind of endorsement from somebody like you who would tell me if I was not doing the right thing massive aggressively, it does feel it is a real validation for me as both a parent and as a business person. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Listen, I think that the most successful people are the people that have a personal attachment to what they do, right? So I can't imagine that you're not going to absolutely kill this as you continue to grow out what you're doing. But, I have a child who's on the spectrum, and you and I talked about this at UPowered or maybe somewhere else, but it took me way too many years to get a diagnosis for him. And it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through the healthcare system trying to achieve, right? And I work in it frequently enough that I know what I'm doing, but it was really, really hard to get my son diagnosed. And then even, the self-funded health plans that I build, they're very flexible. They have the employers have a lot of autonomy, but I remember one case came across my desk and it had continued to be denied by our medical management that we put in place. And, I like to think that we use medical management that, evidence-based clinical guidelines. We don't use any of that buka crap. But this case kept getting denied and denied and denied until it got to an appeal stage. And as it turns out, it was a child who was on the spectrum who was being denied further treatment. And, I'm not a clinician at all, but I ended up reviewing it and making a recommendation to the employer, which was to overturn the denial because there was historical notes all over the place that therapy had been really impactful for this child. And for whatever reason, even the best laid plans, even the most transparent, are still missing some of these kids, like to detriments that are, again, like have very heavy consequences. And so what you're doing is it's personal for me. I wish I would have had Sunstone when, back when I was getting my son diagnosed. But it's like it impacts more than just the patient. And so I love what you do, and I think you're going to be amazing at it.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, my mission is to help these families, right? And so we're just out there trying to do that every day. I mean, it's so interesting. I have so many questions for you that we'll get to you offline because I don't want to just make this a totally business conversation, but just about like, direct pay options and escalation fees and all this sort of stuff. But
maybe that's another show as we talk the business side of it, and because there are several
we'll have
questions.
to hire Emma for that one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, go continue. Sorry.
No. It's great, Emma. I really do appreciate the not professional endorsement, but the personal endorsement. It's very frustrating for me as an engineer, and frankly, someone who is like relatively new in the healthcare space, to be able to see these sorts of solutions that are sitting on the shelf that are not being applied into the care continuum very early, right? Like, why should any of these parents be told, hey, let's just wait and see if he misses the next milestone? Like, right. Why wouldn't we want to escalate care for our kids as much as possible? What parent doesn't want to move a mountain to make sure their kid is healthy and adjusted and doing as best as humanly possible, right? And having gone through our own, like we're still on our diagnostic odyssey right now, it's maddening. It's maddening. And to think that we can create a solution, I mean, that we have created a solution, it's like, I joke around with people all the time. If healthcare actually worked the way that we wanted to, like this company wouldn't exist, right? So, but yeah, it's a little bit of that ambulance chaser mentality maybe sometimes, but here we are.
Yeah, you're right. And there's like a lot of gaps in the system. And I think the challenge for a lot of advisors is if you don't have a personal connection to the problem, it's hard to know what's the right thing to bolt onto a plan or not. But I don't know how much you've talked about what you do in prior episodes, but I love the model. Like, I like the fact that no one's getting PE'd to death throughout the year when there's no need for it, right? And so that really appealed to me about what you do. But yeah, it's hard. I think we're missing a lot. And again, usually it's sitting in between the broker transacting with whoever they're transacting with, and all that space in between that we're missing is kind of where Sunstone really fits the bill.
It's
I'll
funny.
Stop endorsing you now.
No. Please don't. It's funny that you say that because we work through some great brokers and consultants who just want their plans to get access to the best stuff, right? And I remember early on, like Allison Cohen to Polly, right? And I'm like, hey, well, what do I pay you? And she's like, oh, you can't pay me. If you paid me, that would be a conflict, and then my plans would know that they can't trust me. So you can't pay me at all. And I was like, all right, well, that's great. That works for us, and you're ethical. That's amazing, right? And then I go talk to some of the big brokerage houses, and I won't name names, but like 15 minutes in the conversation, they're like, "Oh yeah, this makes perfect sense. Our plans will love this, but I gotta ask, do you have commission for my brokers? Because they're not gonna move it unless we can pay them some money." And I'm like, "Yeah, like we can figure that out because I understand how you work as well." But instantly you're like, "Oh, it's transactional for you. It's not about doing the right thing."
You get the ick, right? You're like,
But yeah,
that's what it is though. And I've been like, I've joined groups, Josh, that would be like, please come join this group of advisors that are like the most innovative. Yeah. And I always join them, but it wasn't very long ago. I was sitting in a meeting with all these innovative advisors and there was a pitch in the middle of the day. I think it was an ICRA, so didn't apply to me, but one of there was a broker in the front of the room, older than me, clearly had been doing this, for most of her life. And in 5 minutes in, interrupts, "Okay, how do we get commission? How do we get paid?" And I'm just like, I had to
yep.
leave the room because I was with a colleague, and as soon as she saw me hear that, she was like, "Leave the room, leave, go before." Like, and obviously I don't want to embarrass anybody. I never want anyone to feel that way, but it's just like, it's really icky. It's really gross. And that's why, like, we get back to people don't know what they don't know. And that goes for advisors in big part. Like, a lot of us, we went to school, we got our license, and then we went to work for carriers or brokerages, and we learned what we learned. It took me years to unlearn this stuff. And so I hope I can help them kind of get there. But, you have some influencers in the space who are up there talking trash about advisors. Well, yeah, some of them are going to be bad no matter what, but let's give them an opportunity to figure it out, be curious and learn before we trash talk them all over LinkedIn, right? So there's like, I might be massive aggressive, but I also recognize that there's middle ground and there's room for growth and change in everybody. So I hold on to that belief pretty steadily.
So
Yeah.
where do you see the opportunity for the most meaningful transformation in this space?
Hmm.
Do you mean industry wide or at the employer level?
Let's just go like employer sponsored rather.
So probably the most impactful thing that an employer can do is just demand transparency so that they can actually see what's going on. Without that visibility, there's nothing you can do because you're just you're guessing at that point what the problem is. So the best thing that they can do is take ownership of their health plans. And that's kind of why I think audits are so important, especially now because the fiduciary risk is real high for employers and they don't know it. They hear it, but if you're an advisor at a big house, you're not advising your employer about fiduciary responsibility because why would you? Um, the biggest thing that they can do is get a hold of their own data. And then at that point, the next step is to figure out how to analyze it and use a neutral third party to do that. And then after that, it's super simple things. It's like change your PBM. If you're self-funded in an ASO model, just self-fund with an independent TPA. I promise you the change will be apparent immediately.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like all or nothing. It can just be like, hey, how about we pull this little lever? And most of the time, those are changes that employees never see. They never realize, they don't know about. To them, nothing is different. But yeah, I think like employers taking ownership and kind of standing on their moral ground a little bit more with their advisors is probably the biggest thing that they could do to start.
Emma, I heard this great analogy about like right now plans basically pay their healthcare bill. It's as if like your credit card company just sent you a statement at the end of the month and they're like, "Hey, you owe us $4,000." You're like,
Yeah.
"Do I? Like, what did I spend that money on?" They're like, "Oh no, that's proprietary data. But
Mhm.
trust me, you owe me $4,000, right?" And you're like, "Well, I guess I have to pay." And I love this thing that you just talked about with like you don't have to be perfect to be good. And to me, I think about it a lot in the sense of like personal fitness or physical fitness, where like, yeah, you can't like become super fit overnight, right? But if you like go to the gym a little bit tomorrow and cut out a little bit of sugar and eat a little bit more vegetables, like in a year or two or maybe five, you will actually be in a much better place than you are today. And like it's just about taking that first step with somebody that you can trust who's actually going to help coach and guide you there. And I think for you, if you can create this army of trusted advisors, it will. I think it's the other way, where like you think that you can't break the system, but I think that you're actually building that like guerrilla force to go off and actually take a big chunk out of the system at a minimum.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence. I
I've
appreciate it.
met you. I've met you. I'm confident about it.
No, thank you. And here's what I would say to any advisor, like, this has not always been my stance. When I first came out of the carrier gates, and I used to tell people, we're ripping off the Band-Aid, we're doing it all. Like, we're not going through this massive disruption year over year over year to make your employees comfortable. Like, we have the solution. And again, like, I think the key for employers, advisors, and anybody else is approaching things with curiosity, trying to understand what the real problem is at a more granular level, and being open to changing and adapting and having a little bit of a growth mindset, because the message will change and your beliefs will become stronger. But the curiosity is like the biggest thing. If you go into, I just talked to a broker yesterday. I haven't talked to him in forever, and he does a lot of traditional business. And he made this joke about like, oh, I don't care as long as I'm getting paid. And I didn't give him any crap for it, because, it is what it is. But all I said was, if you get a little bit curious about where that money's coming from, I think you might change your tune a little bit. And that's it, right? It's like little things, just little things to change a heart, to change a mind, to change an outcome.
I love that.
Well, we're so thankful to have you on the show with us today and share your immense wisdom and experience and all the things that you're working on. I think, Josh, I'll speak for you. I think it'd be great to have you on again to go deeper and wider into some of this stuff.
Up to Emma. Anytime, Emma, anytime.
Anytime. No, thank you guys so much. You've been so sweet and so complimentary, and it really helps motivate me, especially post symposium where the lull is real. But no, I love what you guys are doing. Truly, thank you for inviting me to talk.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'll see you in Phoenix, if not before.
Yeah, obviously before, Josh.
Well,
of
yeah,
course.
I know before, but.
Yeah.
Well, on behalf of my guests today, Josh Resnikoff and Emma Fox from FoxWatch, you've been listening to or watching the Sunstone Health Podcast. Until next time.